Japanese police are looking to put a Chinese national on Interpol's wanted list. He's suspected to have assisted the Chinese military in launching cyber attacks against 200 Japanese companies. A privacy nightmare has become reality in China, according to a new report. It describes how spy cameras and covert surveillance are getting more and more common, and how secretly collected images are often used for blackmail. The US is urging Beijing to release detained Hong Kong journalists. That's amid authorities' latest round of suppression on press freedom in the city. A Chinese law enforcement agency is testing out a new kind of prosecutor, one that runs on artificial intelligence. Officials say the machine can identify crimes and press charges against real people. And one of China's most capable seaworthy ships has been spotted conducting unauthorized surveys. That's in the water surrounding an island nation near the Philippines. Analysis suggests the data China collected may be useful for undersea warfare.
Hello and welcome to today's China in Focus. I'm Evelyn Lee in for Tiffany. And just before we start, here's some quick announcements. On Friday, China in Focus will bring you an outlook of China in 2022. We will go through the biggest China stories to watch out for in the coming year. So make sure you don't miss that episode on Friday. And another thing, as you may already know, YouTube has demonetized us for about a year now. So what that means is that we haven't been getting any revenue from YouTube ads. So if you like our coverage, you can donate to our team to show your support. And here's how. In the description box down below, there is a link. You can just follow that link and it will take you through the entire process. And on behalf of the team, I want to thank all of you again for being with us during this past year, and we look forward to providing you with more insights about China in the year ahead. The Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department is trying to arrest a Chinese national. On Tuesday, the department obtained an arrest warrant for Wang Jianbin on suspicion of attempted fraud in connection with cyber attacks on Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency. According to Japanese media, Wang has already returned to China, but the Metropolitan Police Department intends to put Wang on Interpol's wanted list. Investigators say Wang is believed to have posed as an employee of a fake Japanese company. That's in order to attempt to buy Japanese security software. During voluntary questioning, Wang told authorities that his wife instructed him to contribute to his country by purchasing the software. She's known to be a member of the Chinese military. Authorities said Wang sought to buy the security software in order to probe it for vulnerabilities. Those weak points could then help China's military launch cyber attacks against Japanese companies, including Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency. Between 2016 and 2017, officials reported that about 200 Japanese companies and institutions were hit by cyber attacks, suspected to have been launched under the direction of the Chinese military. It's the focus of many people's worst nightmares, hidden spy cameras peering at unsuspecting, unknowing participants and secretly recording them. According to an investigative report by Chinese media Legal Daily, that's exactly what's happening inside China. It says hidden cameras are prevalent throughout the country and that people's private information is being collected and sold at low cost. Spy camera use has reportedly become more sophisticated owing to a long history as an underground industry inside the country. Video and images are covertly captured in places like public restrooms, hotels, and airplanes. Some also target specific groups like students, influencers, and those who live stream content online. The report alleges that some of these secretly taken images even specially zoom in on a subject's private area. The tools needed for this kind of surveillance are unnervingly easy and cheap to obtain. Many spy cameras of all different kinds are sold through online platforms. Those sellers will often disguise cameras as something else, making them appear as electronic keys, lighters, eyeglasses, power banks, razors, clocks, or calendars. And those are just a few examples. Some of the cameras also boast long standby times, meaning they can be placed in advance and actively wait for a target to appear in frame. Others can be used to view live footage remotely. These with advanced functions are reportedly sold for around $300. Cell phones can also be modified into a spy camera, with a price tag for that transformation sitting just around $20. Some phone apps have also been found to capture pictures and videos silently in the back end, even when the device is locked. That's not all. The report also highlights how some home security cameras may not be so secure anymore. Hackers can now hack into these cameras and use them for their own monitoring purposes. The report blames these crimes on the temptation of easy profit, coupled with weak regulation. Reporters found that in group chats related to these underground activities, these pictures and videos are often labeled with price tags. They're usually cheap, but can be sold again and again for more profit. In one case from this June, it was revealed that a single spy camera can generate 100 remote viewer invitations, meaning the seller can collect payment from 100 people simultaneously. But even that isn't enough for some of these criminal photographers. Some take still another shortcut to boost profit. According to Chinese media analysis, around 30% of those capturing their surveillance data choose to blackmail their victims using the collected images. Secretly capturing images of an unsuspecting person, including with the use of spy cameras, is illegal under Communist Chinese law. But the punishment doesn't back much of a punch. The law says the offense carries a maximum fine of less than $80 plus a 10-day detention period. A related case from this March made headlines in southeastern China. In the city of Xiamen, a man was found to have hacked into over 40 devices that linked to over 230 cameras. Taking control of the cameras, he used them to spy on victims' private activity. Once he was confirmed guilty, he received a 6-month prison sentence and a $470 fine. Speaking to the Epoch Times, a Japan-based media expert sheds light on the situation, explaining that the widespread surveillance conducted by the Chinese Communist regime monitors the public in the name of maintaining social stability. But when it comes to private spy camera use, little is done to crack down on these violations. After raiding a pro-democracy media outlet's office, Hong Kong authorities are now pressing charges on 2 former editors. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
Hong Kong authorities are tightening their grip on the city's media landscape. Authorities are pressing charges on 2 former editors from a pro-democracy media outlet. The accusation is that they published materials inciting hatred towards the government. The editors used to work for one of Hong Kong's last pro-democracy media organizations, Stat News. The organization was forced to shut down after police raided its office. Authorities also arrested 7 current and former staff members. That includes a famous pro-democracy singer Denise Ho, who served as a Stat News board member. She has been released on bail. Ho is not facing any charges right now, but is required to report to the police next March. The 2 former editors are still in detention. A judge refused to grant them bail. Authorities are slated to hear their case next February. And the move doesn't stop here. Police have confiscated almost 100 computers from Stat News, and officers are set to comb through them to gather evidence on who else they may look into next. Stat News' closure marks another blow for Hong Kong's press freedom. The city used to pride itself in its independent press, but Hong Kong's press freedom is hitting an all-time low after Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law last year. Under it, Hong Kong's largest pro-democracy newspaper, Apple Daily, closed its doors. That's after police raided its office and arrested senior staff. Other media outlets in Hong Kong are feeling the pressure too. Following the Stat News incident, another online media says it plans to stop operation in January, and that all staff members would be dismissed. The announcement has attracted over 200 comments. One of them reads, "We understand. Hope you guys can stay safe." Juliet Song, NTD News.
And elsewhere in the world, Hong Kong authorities' raid on Stand News is making waves. The U.S. is urging Beijing to release detained journalists. In a statement, Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that journalism is not sedition, and he is now asking Beijing to stop targeting Hong Kong's free and independent media entities. Blinken added that information brought to light by a free press is critical to a prosperous society, and that a confident government that is unafraid of the truth embraces a free press. Canada is also reacting to the news. One of those arrested was singer and activist Denise Ho, a Canadian citizen. She's since been released on bail. Posting on Twitter, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says Canada will always stand up to support democracy and freedom of the press. A spokesperson from the European Union says the raid marks a further deterioration in press freedom in Hong Kong. And in Taiwan, some activists are rallying to show their support for Hong Kong.
First, they crack down on democratic activities. Then they seize civil groups. Today, they ban media. Tomorrow, they suppress education. And the day after tomorrow, they take all of Hong Kong's culture and its people. But Hong Kong's people are lucky to have supporters all along the road. Being here in Taiwan, we feel support from society.
Taiwan's president is urging international allies to pay close attention to the Hong Kong incident. She says pursuing democracy and freedom is not a crime and that Taiwan will continue its support of Hong Kong. A subsidiary of Chinese state-owned telecom giant China Mobile will stop operating in Canada. The subsidiary CM Link said on Tuesday that the Canadian government ordered it to end its operations by early January. CM Link's announcement came after the Canadian government conducted a review of the company earlier this year. It was because of national security concerns. Canada suspected the company of spying for Beijing. In August, the Canadian government asked China Mobile to divest or liquidate CM Link within 90 days. Last year, the Pentagon named China Mobile as being controlled by the Chinese military. In June this year, President Biden signed an executive order placing China Mobile on a blacklist. Americans and U.S. institutions are banned from investing in it. Human rights groups are asking people to take a pledge. They should make a personal commitment not to receive an organ transplant from China. This is their new campaign called #NotFromChina. The International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China and two other nonprofits started the campaign. Their website says the campaign aims to raise awareness about and put an end to organ harvesting in China. So far, around 750 people have taken the pledge. An independent People's Tribunal concluded in 2019 that the Chinese regime has been committing forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience for years, all throughout China. A Chinese law enforcement agency says it has developed an artificial intelligence prosecutor. It's a machine that can charge people with crimes using AI technology. Researchers say the AI prosecutor can file charges based on verbal descriptions of cases. They say the machine can identify the 8 most common crimes in Shanghai. That includes credit card fraud, theft, and what's known as picking quarrels and provoking trouble, a charge that authorities use to suppress dissidents. A major district prosecution office in Shanghai built the machine. The lead scientist that developed it says it can help cut down prosecutors' and staffers' workloads. But one prosecutor from southern China has some concerns. He told news outlet South China Morning Post that AI could make mistakes and that it's unclear who will take responsibility if that's the case. Would it be the prosecutor, the machine, or the designer of the algorithm? A Chinese survey ship has been accused of unauthorized activities in Palau's Exclusive Economic Zone, or EEZ. Palau is an island nation in the Western Pacific near the Philippines. The vessel involved is one of China's most capable ocean resource survey ships. It's estimated that the survey has to do with studying undersea resources or a seabed mapping mission. It could be collecting specific data for dual civilian and military use, but in either case, the vessel needs permission from Palau. The presence of the vessel worries Palau. Despite Palau's strategic location, it doesn't have any armed forces. It relies on the U.S. for protection. According to its local media, Palau's maritime security has been tracking the vessel, but unable to act. And the vessel left after 5 days in Palau's waters from November 29th to December 4th. A geointelligence analyst who studied the ship says the ship's path shows it clearly entered Palau's EEZ. And the way it moved suggests that it was doing a seafloor survey. The ship likely followed a major underwater ridge in the region. And this type of data gathered can be very useful in undersea warfare, especially for submarines. Reports say that the same Chinese survey ship has operated in the EEZ of Brunei, Malaysia, and the Philippines in September. The ship left after Malaysia protested for 2 weeks. Tens of thousands of Hongkongers have fled to the UK this year due to Beijing's political crackdown. But some say they faced danger even while living in the UK. This raises concerns about Beijing's infiltration of British society. NTD's Jane Worrell brings us this report.
In London, they are free to call for democracy for their city of Hong Kong. But rights activists Nathan Law and Simon Cheng have endured troubles like they faced back home right here in the UK. A recent post on a Chinese-owned messaging app offered a £10,000 reward for their UK addresses.
And I felt firstly quite shocked because they've been quite blatantly threatened me, because they wanted to get my personal address. I think that they not just only target me as an individual, but they have political motivation behind. That's why I report to the UK police.
At the end of November, a so-called anti-Asian hate rally was hosted in London's Chinatown by what appears to be several pro-Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, groups. One of the rally supporters was the London Chinatown Chinese Association. They took out an advert supporting Beijing's national security law in UK Chinese newspapers. And rally organiser the Federation of UK Fujian Chinese is known to support the CCP.
The CCP loves to conflate two different things, anti-Chinese racism, anti-China sentiment with criticism of the CCP. And in my view, they're two completely different things. We should all be opposed to racism of all kinds, and particularly anti-Chinese and anti-Asian racism at this current time. But that should not mean that we shouldn't be critical of the CCP's treatment of its people and its repression and aggression in the world today.
A so-called anti-racist organisation known as the Monitoring Group was another rally organiser. One of their board members writes on Twitter that the Uyghur Tribunal was dangerous, predictable propaganda. The tribunal was chaired by Sir Geoffrey Nice QC and recently found the CCP guilty of genocide.
Even some kind of the organisation, they claim that they would help Asians to protect them from racial attack. They should also recognise that that is, if they truly stand for that principle, they should also care about those discriminations and systematic attack on some ethnic minorities in China as well.
It's reported that Hongkongers who held a counter-protest to the rally were violently attacked. It's understood that Labour MP John McDonnell didn't show up despite being on the rally poster as a speaker after hearing that some of the organisers supported the national security law. In London, the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime, or MOPAC, commissions the Community Alliance to Combat Hate. The monitoring group is a member of this alliance. MOPAC said they don't directly fund the monitoring group. It's unclear if they fund it via other organisations. A spokesperson for the Mayor of London said, "We recognise the seriousness of the concerns presented and MOPAC will take up these concerns." Tens of thousands of Hong Kongers have arrived in the UK this year after Beijing passed its controversial national security law, a law that's led to the Chinese regime tightening its control over the former British colony. Despite the threats, many stay determined to speak out for freedoms in Hong Kong. Jane Worrell, NTG News.
Next, we'll find out more about the Chinese regime's influence operations in the UK. NTD's Jane Worrell speaks with Sam Armstrong from the transatlantic foreign policy think tank, the Henry Jackson Society.
I'm here with Sam Armstrong from the Henry Jackson Society. Hi Sam, in terms of the UK government, what are the practical steps that can be taken in terms of dealing with the CCP influence in the UK?
Well, when we have crime that is racially motivated in this country, it is investigated by dedicated police units that deal with hate crimes. Increasingly, we are seeing that political hate crimes are also coming in. Now, these are badly set out in law. We have no special offences for them, unlike hate crimes, and they're not investigated thoroughly enough by the police here. So from the start, we need to get to a stage in which our police services and our laws reflect that dictatorial states are trying to impinge upon the democratic exercising of rights by people both of Chinese origin originally and UK nationals through threats of violence. They need to be investigated and dealt with. The second is we need to wake up and realise that foreign political influence operations are being conducted on our soil. Now, when we conduct those overseas, we recognise that that is an intelligence effort, that is an act of statecraft, and we invest enormously in doing so. The same is being conducted on us. Yet our intelligence services, particularly MI5, I'm afraid to say, have not yet devoted the resources to dealing with this as what it is, which is a national security problem that requires us to secure our societies to ensure that our fundamental values are not being undermined by a state that wishes us harm.
And it appears to be going quite deep into the UK society. We have like different things under different banners, maybe, that might not be so obvious. So how deep is it infiltrated?
Well, the United Front Work Department, which leads the Chinese Communist Party's global influence operations, is an expert at badging itself under hundreds of different labels, all of them seemingly anodyne, all of them seemingly fulfilling another benevolent purpose. Underneath it all is this desire to advocate for the Chinese Communist Party and to restrict those who seek to speak out against it. It requires dedicated, determined investigations to get to the bottom of this. But that's not to say that this country isn't capable of doing so. Remember that this country did so when dealing with Islamist extremism. It was capable of identifying various branches of the Muslim Brotherhood acting in the UK. Very similar organisation, a network of networks. We have shown that we are able to get to the bottom of it if we're prepared to devote resources to dealing with this as a problem of the seriousness that it deserves.
And how can British people tell if certain organisations might be connected to these CCP influence operations?
Well, if a group is claiming to speak on behalf of Chinese students, then it's a responsibility of those in the UK to ask, on behalf of which students are you speaking? Do you support those students in the UK that wish to speak out and speak up for the rights of Hong Kong nationals to elect their own government? If a group chooses to obfuscate or say that they don't speak on those behalf, then you know on whose behalf it is truly speaking, which is that of the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese Communist Party officials won't lie about the fact of who they support and who they don't support. So to anyone who's questioning a group that claims to be speaking on behalf of Chinese nationals, Chinese students, members of the Chinese diaspora, ask it on behalf of which Chinese students, which Chinese nationals, which members of the Chinese diaspora are you really speaking?
Some of you have been asking about our new channel, China in Focus 2.0. Unfortunately, YouTube has taken that down. We're working on resolving the issue, though, and are sorry about the inconvenience. In the meantime, you can still watch our daily program on this channel and on the NTD website. Or you can also watch us on cable TV, as well as streaming services including Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and Sony TV. And that's it for today's China in Focus. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.